Hello, welcome to another Azure Centric Podcast on our Azure Weekly Update Show. My name is Marcos Nogueira, and with me I have Andrew Lowes. Andrew, it's been a long time that we are not together, at least with our regular conversation. A lot of things happen,
Yeah,
family issues, right? That we never wanted, work, too much work, too much. At the end of the
lots
year,
of work.
it's crazy, right? Crazy times.
Yeah, it's been busy. There's been some family things, and there's been lots and lots of work to do. Right, these are some difficult things to work through that we all face as humans in the modern world. And then we've also had a lot of kind of last minute crunch for
Yes.
projects coming in for end of year, like you say. And
Yeah.
I think there's been a lot of companies have had that challenge, and we've been pretty lucky in that way, right?
Yeah.
So we were talking, and we said, hey, you know what? We're a bit overdue. Maybe maybe we should record. And of course, no end of technical challenges, because
Absolutely.
why not throw that in the mix today too?
Exactly. Why not? We're talking about updates, and we cannot. We're going like this is like what the 57th time that we are trying to record.
Exactly. Yeah. Take 39. This one.
Exactly.
Yeah, whatever.
And
Yeah. See, and I think everybody who already follows us knows we don't cut. If we mess something up, we just apologize and
exactly.
keep going.
Exactly.
Uh,
And
so
it's a good
with that
segue.
said,
It's a good segue because Calgary and Alberta, right? It's where we are. Is been lately. We've been having issues. That's the curious part with the film industry. They are
mm,
cutting out, in this case, streets. They are doing that, and it says we never had that problem before, and
nope,
now it's
it's
like
a new thing. Yeah.
it's cameras everywhere, and it's like series on This Is Us. It's filming here in Calgary, and a lot of those things is filming. It's interesting. So
Yeah, there's been some big name shows, big
yeah,
stars kind of coming through the whole province, really, just kind of
absolutely.
from Lethbridge, and I know down Fort Macleod they've had a lot of Ghostbusters, I think, for example.
Really
Uh, yeah,
nice.
was really cool, right?
Yeah.
So they're these big film crews, and I know Vancouver. You're gonna say, hey, we're used to it.
Yes.
It's cool. You get to see all the movie stars. So I don't do a lot other than work stuff.
Exactly. And I know this because I have to confess, this weekend I was seeing the last episode, for example, of Yellowstone, without any type of branding. And the guy, when the kid was asking one of the cowboys, saying, what is the best rodeo? And he mentioned Stampede in Calgary, Alberta. And say, wow, we
Yeah,
are famous
absolutely.
now. It's not only YouTube now on this channel, but we are famous.
Right. So that's a good segue, I think, too, because one of the interesting things, even though we've been, and I will be very honest, and I apologize to all of our dedicated followers and listeners, we have not been consistent
No.
because we've been kind of distracted with real life. And we always endeavor to kind of improve. So we've talked about it. We're going to get better. We promise.
Yes.
But it didn't slow down on the YouTube channel,
No.
even, right?
No.
So everybody kept watching videos, and it's been growing. And I know that you usually love to say this, but I'm going to take my turn as well. Thank you very much. And remember, like and subscribe. Smash that like button. And hey, if you love an episode, give us a thumbs up. If you're not as happy with an episode, hey, give us a thumbs down, put a comment in, and let
Exactly.
us know.
Exactly.
We don't discriminate. Just give us some raw honesty. We're good with that.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's been fantastic, and you right there, that's right, you at home, you're the reason that we do this. So let us know what you think. Weigh in, good, bad, other. Tell us what you're giving somebody for Christmas. Kind of if there's another nerd in your life, let us know
Exactly.
what you're going to share for this holiday season. I brought my Christmas bling today.
Yes, I think I see that your attire for this episode is like top notch, like bow tie and everything else. I feel like underdressed for this episode,
I was
but
going to go full penguin suit, but I
oh
thought
my God, no, I don't have that. Sorry, sorry to disappoint you, but I don't have that.
I don't have one in the cupboard. It's okay.
Okay, it's time to roll and get back to the updates. Let's roll then. So, welcome back, and let's jump without any further ado on the first episode or the first update. Is the general availability of Wildcard Listener on Application Gateway. And I have to say that this usually it's not one of the things that we recommend. It's like using wildcard certificates, but it's nice to have because I have to confess that not very long time ago, I was on a project that I had some sites, and in the middle of the project that I was doing an upgrade, right, to in this case the web apps application, we were using application gateways to filtering all the traffic as we should, right? But in the middle of that process, we discovered that the certificate needs to be renewed. And the issue with all the sites that we had is we had to renew each one of the certificates. Right now, this is GA. It's always happened like that, right? When you need it, it doesn't have that feature. But when you already pass all of that work, now the feature becomes available, right?
Exactly.
But
It's always the way. I know we've had some technical glitches today. Total deja vu talking about this, but I think one of the things that we think about when we have the wildcard is, like you say, the wildcard certificates, right? So again, I'm going to pick on Contoso because it's the example we have in our MS Docs reference guidelines, right?
absolutely.
So when we think about App Gateway and allowing that host-based routing, we really want to use kind of named sites, named certificates when we can. So there's lots of use cases when we can use wildcards as well. So internal dev test, kind of app development, proof of concepts, so on and so on, right? So kind of when we have the ability to utilize the wildcard, we absolutely should, when it's safe to do so within all of the security parameters. So I know we've both talked with many of our customers at length about kind of the security requirements around named certificates, named sites. So we're not going to, I don't think, at least I don't plan on deep diving on that one today. But I think when it comes to the ability to wildcard our URLs, it's a really nice change, right? Because like you say, this always comes after we're finished a big project implementing a whole bunch of individually named things. But this is one of the things that can really help us save quite a lot of time, right?
Absolutely.
So we can host multiple web applications on a single IP address.
Yes.
We can consolidate the use of our application gateways down a little bit and kind of save a little bit of that Azure spend and maybe build out a bit more powerful back-end server to help handle all of that great traffic that's going to come through because you got to spend money on marketing.
Exactly, and that's a very nice way to put it. Although with this, the possibility that is around this, it's tremendous because first and foremost, with one listener, what's called the wildcard listener, you can have up to 5 host names, okay, per listener, which allows you even to mismatch what you're having on the back. So even if following exactly the same document, for example, that you mentioned on the docs, for multiple site hosting, is you can allow on one wildcard, for example, to have virtual machines, something like that.
Mhm.
On a different wildcard, right, for a different domain, you can have web apps. So it doesn't need to be exactly the same end, or in this case, hostname or backend. You can, in this case, consolidate and be able to use with one single IP, and that's the part that is really crucial because usually you use static IP for those, right?
Mhm.
You don't use dynamic, so you can reduce the number of IPs to just have a centralized app gateway to filter, in this case, all of that traffic, right? And have all of those backends supporting or in this case being filtered by a single app gateway. So it's fairly good, that I have to say regarding this update. It's awesome and it allows you to do a lot of other things, right?
Absolutely, right? So yeah, you can kind of refocus on other things because this is going to make your implementation a little bit quicker. I also really love, it's kind of maybe a bit old school how we used to do the subsites with IIS and things like
Yeah.
that, but you can do the subdomains because of the wildcards, right? So you
Yes.
can do like xyz dot star dot whatever dot com, right? And you can have kind of, there's some open possibilities to kind
Absolutely.
of consolidate and you can nest things. So really great. And thank you for mentioning the static IPs because that's another kind of a very important layer that we have to make sure we have deployed properly on the application gateway.
Yeah, absolutely. The next update is dear to our heart. Okay. It's the general availability of VPN Gateway NAT. So
Mm-hmm.
Azure VPN NAT, the NAT address translation, okay, supports now the overlapping address space between your on-premise branch networks and your Azure networks. So finally, we can have NAT. So means that this we can support a one-to-one static NAT and one-to-many dynamic NAT. These allow us, okay, and this is the important part that we always over that, allow us to do one thing that, and this is going to be a deja vu again, using your words, of a project, a big project we had of overlapping addresses. Remember that project?
Mm. I know the one in which you refer to. Yes. Yeah,
So,
we don't encounter that too often
no,
at that scale, but it's a real challenge. And as enterprise continues to grow, and consumption of IP addresses is a real challenge like in the real world. We're going to run into that more and more, I think, especially as kind of IP4 starts to hit that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Critical mass.
yes,
But so that was one of the interesting things with this as well, right?
yeah,
Is this allows us to do connect an IPv6 network to an IPv4 network
as well.
using NAT64, right?
Yeah,
So that's pretty cool, I have to say.
yeah. So and this allows, in this case, a lot of organizations, and then we see that movement a lot of organizations using, for example, um, Azure in this case as a kind of a starting point, as a kind of a sandbox environment, right? And they're starting to see the value, and they're starting to develop in that. And after that development, right? They are starting to say, okay, we should consider now using and using in this case, or in this case bridging between the Azure and on-premise. But one of the rules before this, right, before this GA, before the VPN, was that you cannot overlap because of the routing, especially if you want to adopt the BGP one, right?
Exactly.
And with this allows you, in this case on your VPN gateway, to not changing anything that you have on that environment, even if you want to use that environment on the hybrid scenario, but allows you to just be able to reuse that without any issues if you want to. Even if you want, for example, and this is just come to my mind, is if you even if you want to test applications that they are hard coded with IPs and all of that, okay, that usually they are custom and new development and they are legacy, right? And you want to test them, for example, on the cloud, and they need to come to some kind of, let's say, file share on premise or any other application, allows them to just test the Azure, and be able to create a VPN gateway with this NAT that it doesn't impact at all what it have in production or we have in any type of shape or form. So the possibilities are tremendous with this, and it's really nice to see that still on the Azure Cloud Adoption Framework that you should not overlap. Okay, it's still there. It's still the best recommendation. It's still the best practice. But there are some scenarios that this VPN NAT gateway is going to be the difference, right?
Yeah, and I loved what you were saying around hard-coded IPs in legacy applications, for example. So maybe we've lost access to the code, or we're not able to recompile because we're locked into licensing. Things like these are real problems that happen for legacy applications, right? And when that happens, now this gives us an option to be able to do a bit of lift and shift. So as you know, I'm a big supporter of Azure VMware Services, the AVS implementation, because it allows for that rapid lift and shift into cloud and give business a little bit of scalability and disaster recovery. But in this case, it's that same style of flexibility, right? So the natting is really going to allow us to extend our applications even when tied to on-prem IP ranges from legacy configs. And we're going to be able to do a little bit more with them.
Absolutely.
In that way. We can extend the lifetime, get things fixed. It means that we can lower the cost of redevelopment or redeployment, all those kinds of things, and take some time and problem solve without the rush, without the pressure and expense of do it right now. So absolutely. I think this is a really great option. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. But you're right, important to note that the Cloud Adoption Framework absolutely recommends we not overlap our address spaces. But I will also say it happens.
It happens as well. Although I want to just talk about two important points regarding this GA or this announcement. That first and foremost, it's not all the SKUs of your VPN. In this case, you will have these available. Usually, from, if I remember, it's just the top ones, as you can always imagine, right? Because it's something, and it's not open for all of the VPNs. So, for example, the VNet to VNet VPN that you might want, it's not available. And on the P2S, so in this case, private to site or private to site, yes, connections are not supported. So basically, NAT is supported on IPsec, in this case, crowd premises connections only. And I think it's important because, again, this is not to be applicable for everything. We should not use it. You should not use this. This is not following the best practice. I think it's the right way to say, as we already mentioned over here. But it's important that we have this available for those type of scenarios and other scenarios that we didn't talk about it, right?
Exactly, yeah. So the SKUs that it's applicable on are the VPN Gateway 2 through 5, so kind of the bigger ones. So this is really geared to solving enterprise-grade challenges, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing that we should maybe mention, look into how your BGP configuration will work with this, and make sure you research that carefully, because the BGP can really, well, Facebook, that's all I'm going to say, right? It can absolutely catch us up. It can be a bit of a trick. So it happens to the best of us, not to pick on, just one company or anything other.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that was just how it plays out. And probably BGP was just one of the problems. Config management, I would say, would be a bigger challenge in that case, not necessarily the BGP itself. So anyways, enough said. I'm not here to pick on anything.
That's okay. Let's move to the next one. And the next one, it's a pretty cool one. Azure Load Testing, it's now in public preview. So Azure Load Testing is a full managed Azure service that enables our good friends developers, okay, and testers to generate high-scale load and run simulations with custom G-meter scripts to gain actionable insights and to catch the fixed performance. And I just read what it is over there. So basically, it's nothing more than a simple process to automate your CI/CD pipelines, right? And now you have this tool that it's going to test your application regarding loading. Because a lot of those times, right, we have those environments, and I remember my early times of not being a developer, but trying to understand more the developers of the life cycle of the application. Like you develop, and then you going to test, to just going to bugs, right? And then you go into the pre-production or whatever you want to call it, the environment, to just see the testing of the load, to just try to test load. And I remember doing that several times, for example, with SharePoint, with a lot of sites, right? To try to see if they can hold the load and basically going to production. This one allows you to do that without any issues, right?
Absolutely, right? So this is the effort from kind of the containerization side,
Yes.
right? Not just geared at developers, but utilization of containers. So using container insights, application insights, combined with Azure Monitor, of which, of course, Azure Load Testing integrates into these things. So the Azure Load Testing allows us to kind of understand how our application is going to behave under that stress. We can do high-scale load tests, and we can see actually the live updates as you conduct that load test. So JMeter, that's something I'm going to have to explore a little bit and understand what it's modeled after. I have to imagine it's not going to be too far from a lot of our kind of popular languages right now. So that's something we can always come back to. But one of the cool things is that we can also compare our test results and understand how the application behaves within the load testing capacity over time.
Yeah.
So as we adapt our application to behave better, deal with load better, scale, do all the things we need it to do, we can compare our results. That's really great because that's what we want to be able to do, right?
Yeah.
Did the change that we made in our configuration actually improve the behavior of the app under load, or did it make it worse somehow?
Yeah.
Like we have to understand, and that's the whole process of testing, right? Is we
Absolutely.
figure out, right. So how do we push that testing out? How do we build the tube to push it down? I'm totally leading you here.
Tell us.
Oh no, it's for you. So, of course, Azure Load Testing is designed to work as a CI/CD workflow, right?
Yeah.
So, tube. I was trying to get you to say it, but I couldn't. Sorry. We can use pipelines to deploy our load testing. So this is a very flexible, very easy to adapt, and very easy to use.
Yeah.
And then very easy to report on out of Azure Monitor.
Absolutely.
So what a great tool this is. I remember reading about this kind of the day when they released it. I got the news alert, and I was really excited about this because this is something that we can utilize not just against containers, but I see this really growing as a tool and expanding the availability across Azure for lots of things.
Absolutely.
Not to forget, Azure released a little gremlin tool as well, right?
Yeah.
Recently, to help us test in kind of unknown scenarios. Hey, what if we just pull this network plug out over here
Yeah.
and see what happens?
And we
Right?
covered in one of the last episodes on the show. Absolutely. But for me, this is literally a tool that, as you guys already understand, that we didn't use it because it's in preview, first of all. But when I was reading this, when it came available, right? This announcement, the part that I think is crucial, and this is directly to us, is a lot of those times, okay, when you're trying to customize, when we have an app that it's on CI/CD and we are trying to develop that app and all of that, a lot of, especially the C-level, the executives, is going to ask how much it's going to cost me, and in this case with Azure, we know that we pay as we go, right? But a lot of those times, if we predict, for example, if we have like 2 million or something like that, as those numbers starting to grow, we don't have any idea how much that's going to cost precisely, or at least in this case, it's not precisely, with more precision that we want, besides a very bold guess. With this, like you mentioned, we have, besides the historical data, to compare, like, okay, the version 1, it was these metrics, right? The version 2, you have different metrics. So why we have the application slower, and now we can drill down to see what's going on the application.
Exactly.
Okay. Besides that, we have the other information that is, because we know how much is going to be consumed regarding resources, we can map that to the costs, to the effectiveness cost of the application growing and using on those numbers. And now we can literally, with these tests, almost kill several birds in one stone. And I'm not here as animal aggressive. It's just an expression, right?
So tell us, what have you got against birds anyways?
Nothing. I don't have anything. I just
So-
hope that no bird it just poop on me, and I'm very, very pleased that cows doesn't fly.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd be in big trouble here, especially in Alberta. I have to admit,
Oh
I'm a
my
bit of
God,
a-
yes.
I'm not a vegetarian. I'll say
But
it that way.
again, we just went out of track again, but that's okay.
We did. So let's come back to cost
Absolutely.
just for a moment. I know you're ready to move on there. I can see the finger on the button. Old man Patterson with his finger on the button over there. But we've got Azure pricing tool is really great, right? So if I can figure out how to design a budget out of this thing, I think anybody who understands finance is going to be way better. So talking in US dollars out of ESUs, East US. Wow, that came out as all one word there. Sorry about that. The load testing resource is $10 a month, which includes 50 virtual user hours, and it's 15 cents per virtual user hour up to almost 10,000, and then over that it's 7.5 cents. So what I see when I see this is, to scale for 50 user hours as a bulk load test, it's going to cost $10 US to do that. I challenge you to find a load testing tool that you can deploy for $10 plus config time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely challenge you. I've worked with a few different load testing tools. They're not $10. I'm going to say
And I
that.
have to say this: one of my previous jobs that I had, and one of the first that I had here in Canada, um, because at that time I was as well an MVP, I think. I got I remember this. I got the MSDN subscription, and I got access to the Visual Studio Enterprise. that they didn't have it, because that was, I think it's enterprise. It was the top one, and it was like $1,500, something like that, each license. But I got that as on the package to use. And I remember that we want to use that, for example, because inside of that package comes the load test, for example, for SharePoint. Um, and I had to download, right, on the computer, put the license on it to be able to use that feature, just
That's right.
for use that feature, to testing the load of SharePoint and the load balancing and all of that. So with this, I don't need that anymore. And like you said, $10. Yeah, it's not as expensive as those ultra discs, right? That we mentioned. That you need the black card. In this case, any kind
Yeah,
of
I
card
guess
can
so,
do it.
right?
Exactly.
Exactly. So yeah. So shout out to your local Hyper-V MVP, everybody who's contributed to Hyper-V. Thank you, because virtualization has made the world a better place, and
Yes,
it really has. There's a lot more green trees out there because of it. I
absolutely.
think honestly. So, anyways, we should move on
Yes.
because we're barely on the rails here.
Let's move on, and that's the problem of not talking too much and not having this podcast running on every single week, because when we get together again, we're starting to talk too much. But let's move on to the next one. Public preview on Azure NetApp Files application volume group for SAP HANA. Again, SAP HANA driving all of this. We know we already talked about how Azure NetApp Files is integrated with SAP HANA, but now on the application volume group, it's on that part of SAP HANA, but now it's current in public preview. So meaning that it's not available for you to use in yet in production, but you need to submit this on white list of requests for accessing this feature for your SAP HANA. Okay, so first and foremost, to doing that. But there
Non-cloud.
are a lot of good things about this, right?
Absolutely, right. So one of the things that Azure NetApp Files really excels at is lowering latency,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of the kind of the pinning of resources, those high I/O operations. That's not the word I'm looking for. Demanding I/O operations. This is really a big step forwards, right? So it's going to help a lot with system replication for high availability, but also cross-region replication for regional DR with the storage-based replications, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it will, these application volume groups, the AVGs, as they call it, right, for SAP HANA, implements a lot of improvements on many technical by simplifying and standardizing the entire process of your streamline on when you deploy those volumes for SAP HANA. So, for example, instead of creating SAP HANA volumes like data, log, shared, log backup, file backup, okay, individually, now on application volume, you just select the SAP HANA and automatically creates that single atomic operation, okay, by that application. So it's pretty cool, because now you don't need to go there and starting to do it that on the level of that detail. You just create this what's called the application volume group, and bang, it's way more simple to you to operate, right? It's pretty cool. Make it
Exactly.
simple.
Yeah, it's going to really kind of make things much more efficient. And I was reading um, throughout the kind of the reference there, and they talk about the PPG. And when I see PPG, so I'm totally going to blow this one away. I grew up in a small town. When I see PPG, I think of plate glass manufacturing, not not things in Azure. So I was really confused for a moment there, but we're really talking PPG. We're really talking about proximity placement groups. So instead of manually pinning your resources to a storage
Yeah.
group, it's automating that again, right? So it brings the
Oh my.
data, the log, the shared volumes into one spot. So sorry to get that one off track there,
That's
but
okay. That's okay.
I thought I did well. I brought it back.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You went totally off rail and come back again. It's like
It's the bow tie.
it is, and I think it's like those moments that we have an expression in Portugal saying that you release the firework and you're grabbing the remaining of the firework by yourself. Everything you're doing, you're like one man
It
show.
looked like a fun ride.
It is. It is. Okay, let's move on to the next one. General availability of new capabilities in Network Watcher Diagnostic tool to evaluate AVNM security rules. So AVNM is nothing more than Azure Virtual Network Manager. Okay,
Absolutely.
our good friend, the Network Manager. Okay, that is a management service that allows you users to group, configure, deploy, and manage virtual networks globally, okay, across subscriptions. That's basically what is the network manager. In this case, it's a GA, and now you have new capabilities of the network watcher diagnostic tools to be deployed to evaluate all of those rules, right? Pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, and the thing that's interesting is the oh my gosh, network manager, the virtual network manager rules have a higher priority than NSG rule sets.
Yep.
So now we're starting to see a lot more centralized management. So I know the last few weeks you and I have talked with multiple people about Azure Firewall Manager, the policy manager. We've been centralizing, we've been segmenting networks for our customers, and we've been moving more and more in many client environments towards zero trust methodologies. And this is really important because centralizing the policy management first with Azure Firewall, next down the line, I think of Azure Virtual Network Manager, and then with NSGs on VNets and subnets. So we have a very good hierarchy built out and a way to help us easily implement and manage it, right? So we can understand when we're troubleshooting traffic flows, for example, where we need to investigate, where that traffic might be getting blocked or allowed if we don't want it allowed, right? So there's a lot of tools available, and it is a bit confusing. There's quite a few tool sets that we can take advantage of in this space. But this, I think, is a really good move towards simplifying both the diagnostics of the troubleshooting flow, but also the management of those traffic policies and understanding the hierarchy of those traffic policies.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And all of this, it makes your life simple when you're doing all of those rules and new capabilities of monitoring what's going on your network by applying all of this, right? It's really important to have that. On the next update is the general availability of audit logs of Azure Monitor for log queries. So again, Azure Monitor getting new features. In this case, it's the possibility of you having audit logs, right, on log queries.
Absolutely. So I was actually speaking with a client this week about enabling diagnostic logs. And this is one way that we enable the Azure diagnostics mechanisms, and we're able to collect those pieces of data on who ran a query,
Yeah.
when the query was run, and what tool was used to run the query. And this is one of the things I absolutely love about things like App Insights.
Yes.
What the query was, the query text, and the performance stats around running that query or executing that query. These are critical pieces, and the more and more we come to depend on Azure Monitor, the more we need to understand about who's using it, who ran that giant select star query, right?
Yeah.
So back to the days of our SQL databases, I'll say a couple years ago, 1 or 2, right? one of the things that we have to make sure we do is well-designed data queries as well.
Yeah.
No different than KQL, because in Azure, we're limited by capacity and we're limited by throughput. So we have certain allowable query parameters that are allowed to be returned, certain size of data set, the speed it runs, all that stuff. So we can run the diagnostics on those now by enabling the diagnostics logs in Azure and actually see who's doing those things. Really great advancement, and in GA as well.
Yeah, in GA. Although I have to say that, I don't know if you noticed, but if you go into the docs, it still says it's in preview. It's okay.
I did notice that.
It's going to be updated very soon. Probably it's on the CI/CD tube, like you mentioned, right? That AKA it's pipeline.
The spaghetti noodle of
exactly.
CI/CD. Absolutely.
And you have a lot of things. So you have a lot of audit data that you can see, that you can collect from. So it's pretty good regarding that. Although there are some considerations, I don't know if this is applicable for the GA again, because we are supporting this on the information is available. But for example, the performance statistics, it's not available for queries that they are coming from the Azure Data Explorer proxy. Okay. Yeah. So again, the docs say that this is in preview. We don't know if that, but that is for me the most important part that I got from this update, and I think it's worth mentioning on the podcast, right?
Absolutely, yeah. The constant evolution of Azure Monitor is nothing short of amazing. So it's really cool to talk about those things. I enjoyed them.
Absolutely, but it's not the same. It's not the same. We have another one. Oh, not the same. No, it's a good segue. Public preview now on the Azure Monitor action rules. It's now alert processing rules. So this is a name change, okay, that we add. They are renaming these action rules to alert processing rules, which makes more sense. Okay, I have to say. It's one of the good renaming that Microsoft did, because now you have a possibility of, in this public preview, besides the renaming, they are having some updates, some additional updates. So on the wizard, using the wizard, you have now the possibility of standard of creating an editorial portal experience, which is nice. Way more easier navigation, as everything that is being updated. Microsoft is well known for the next finish. So this is one of them. And it's the marvelous of having the GUI interface, right? Do you want to cover any other thing that you think that is important?
Well, I really like the improvements around the time zone support for some of the scheduling. So scheduling, changing rule priority levels based on time zone and time of day. That's a really cool update. They tuck these little one-liners in here sometimes, but they're massive. So this is the kind of thing that we can do to help schedule, office hours versus after hours for running processing rules on the data coming in and on the alerts coming into Azure Monitor, right? So that can really help us kind of build out our own service desk if we're building a NOC, those kinds of things, right? So really helps to build the team's flexibility and adjust for human behaviors as well, because now we can go in and edit a schedule and change the behavior of how the alerting is working, right?
Yeah.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving to the next one, and this one you have a little bit of information as well, is the public preview of measure product effectiveness with new user analytics experience in application insight. This basically it's Azure Monitor. So we are on the Azure Monitor week, let's call it this way, right?
I think so.
I think so. It earns that kind of title for this week, podcasts. But it's based on a lot of monitoring offering. And one of them is the new Heart workbook. And I think,
Well, I want to interject there. It's not new. So HART has been used in application assessment for quite a while,
yes,
right? But so I guess I just have to dive right in. So
I was expecting,
I got excited and then I tried to pull back, but it was too late. I was already falling.
yes,
So in this case, HART is happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success, I think.
yes,
So this goes way back to my app dev days. But basically, we want to drive everything towards happiness, right? So that's the top of our chain, and we want to feed everything up. So being able to kind of work within the HART framework, within the application insights, it's going to be used as the framework to measure the data coming into App Insights against our application that we're monitoring. So now we can see, hey, our users might be feeling impatient when they use our application based on these critical factors found in the application insights data. So this is a really freaking cool way to actually kind of overlay that data. And that's one of the things I love workbooks for. The workbooks within Azure translate across so many of the product and service offerings. It's just mind-boggling. The framework of workbooks themselves, so useful. But with the HART workbook, this is really going to allow us to deeply examine, and I should say this is in preview, right?
yeah.
So, I'm excited about it because the framework coming out is it's a bit familiar to me,
Yeah.
but it's something close
It was
to my
introduced by Google in this case, although
Exactly.
it's a new workbook inside of Azure, inside of application insights, and that's the part that I was mentioning.
Right?
But this is something that is based on Google's Heart framework, and it's really powerful, like you mentioned. So from everything, from the adoption, from the engagement, and all of that, it's a framework that is very successful. That now they are bringing this into App Insights, which is, as we already mentioned several times over here, it's we are fan of it. It saves us a lot of time of plugging in this case, applications to get more insight of what's going on the very, in this case, synthetic transactions, for example. That was a nightmare. I remember my times with SCOM and other monitoring applications. It was a nightmare to get that right. This makes the life so simpler, and the way that you can granular get those information and those details about those synthetic transactions, it's behind this world. And again, they are still improving, and now bringing what is really known as this Google Heart framework into App Insights. That's, again, it's public preview. As you can see, we are excited to be talking about this, but it's pretty cool, because even for us that we are IT guys and we are not developers, you don't need to be a developer to just implement monitoring with synthetic transactions to let. And I have a lot of stories about this, that I can come to developers saying, hey, I'm seeing this error, this, for example, 502 error, whatever it is, error that it doesn't show on the front end, but it's on the back end, and this is triggering a lot of other errors that makes the application slow. And now I can come with authority saying, this is the error, this is the method, this is kind of the stack that is happening, solve it. Okay, because it's impacting the application, and it's powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, it gives us a way to be able to measure and predict user outcomes based on actual monitoring data. So we know we don't get everything's okay alerts, right? Homer Simpson's everything's okay fire alarm, probably not a big seller. But if it ever shuts off, wow, are we ever in big trouble, right?
Yeah.
I joke a little bit, but that is one of the challenges in the monitoring world, right? Is, how do we filter out the everything's okay alerts? And this framework actually helps us to kind of present that in a more usable, more human way so that we can do our analysis and troubleshooting a little bit more concisely. So I think it's absolutely amazing. Now, I think you've saved kind of the best one, maybe for last. I don't know if it's the best one, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you do the notice.
I got excited again. So in public preview, FSLogix profiles support for Azure AD-joined virtual machines for Azure Virtual Desktop.
I cannot say
This
better.
one,
I cannot say better. I have to
this
say.
one is really, really exciting. It's a little bit thin, but when we think about FSLogix, it's often put in front of a lot of kind of like very large profile storage, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So for desktop virtualization, sorry, for some reason the word got away from me, but those FSLogix user profiles are now supported on Azure AD-joined AVD implementations. Like, okay, so preview, right? So don't put it in
Yes.
prod. Oh my gosh. But absolutely test this out in your dev environment and understand how this works. So many businesses are well invested into FSLogix solutions because they provide increased security, reliability, manageability, all of the big sales spiel that we hear about, right? But there's a reason it's popular. It works really well.
It is.
So continued expansion into Azure, continued adoption within Azure, really exciting stuff. I know a lot of virtual desktop and virtualization people that are going to be very happy to hear about this.
Absolutely. And from all the things that this have, and we highly recommend you to see the blog post, right? For me, it was always a nightmare. It was, and this removes that necessity of having a domain controller on the session host, okay, and the network shares. This is like, why in the name of God we have Azure AD-joined VMs, right? And they are on the VDI on the AVD, and why we still need domain controllers because of in this case the session host VM and the network share. So this removes that. For me, that's why I was clapping. I know that it's still in public preview, but again, I'm really excited about this. But this removes that requirement. That is huge, because AVD right now you can have the Azure AD join, so it means that you don't need anymore the Windows Server Active Directory, the directory service. So why in the name of God do you need to deploy, for example, on the subscription or whatever it is that you need, a domain controller? Or it's because it's not only one. You always need
two. It had to be on the same VNet as well.
Exactly.
Though. That was the thing.
And that's the thing. It's like, why you need an extra kind of infrastructure for something.
Well, Zero Trust tells us don't do that.
Exactly.
And then the requirements for some of these services, and again, it's in preview, but they would recommend, hey, you have to have a controller on the same VNet as this. So I also want to give, in this case, a little bit of a shout out, thank you to the Docs team, Microsoft Docs team.
Yes.
Because the article linked out of that blog post for create a profile container with Azure Files and Azure Active Directory, freaking amazing.
It is.
Absolutely everything you need to deploy this using CLI and PowerShell is in the first article. You don't have to read the whole book. It's right in the first article.
Yes.
You can do it in your dev test, have a bit of a play with it. I think it'll take some time to set it up, but it's a really cool thing. And this can really make, again, The last one we were talking about measuring user satisfaction. How do we predict, user outcomes based on data? This contributes to that. Again, good end user focus this week with Azure Monitor. Really fantastic. Amazing releases. Thank you for letting me ramble on.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome, my friend. Because it's really important, and it's not only that. Okay, it's like, of course, that with that you optimize the cost because now you have less infrastructure that needs to support your AVD. In this case, a deployment. You can simplify the deployment by enhancing the management of Intune because now it's Azure AD that is managing those VMs and a lot of those type of things that you have regarding these profiles using FSLogix that support Azure AD-joined VMs. It's tremendous. Okay, it's literally tremendous. All of this, and with that, we come to the final of our podcast for this week, and I have to thank you once again for making this possible. We made it after the 58 times that we tried to record this week, but that's we're just kidding. Okay, we're just kidding. This was like the third something like that,
third or fourth.
Third or fourth.
I had some software issues.
Yeah, and, challenges, not issues, challenges that we overcome because we did finish the podcast. So everything sorted out. And I just want to say that and to reiterate. And again, if you grab at this point in time, don't forget to support us by subscribing, by liking or not liking. We love your thumb, if it's even it's up or down.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Drop a comment.
And
tell us about your holiday plans. I know everybody's getting ready to travel again and all of these good things. And, we just want to also say from the very bottom of our heart, thank you very much for joining us. And if we don't see you before everything kind of goes down, happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. But don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to give us your love. And I hope I can see you next week. Bye for now.